Okay, and the last page just gives you some troubleshooting tips, but we're not going to worry about that because what can go wrong, right? Yeah, famous last words. Okay, I've ran into a problem with the Inquisitor, so I'm going to start this video here. We're going to try to troubleshoot it and try to figure out what's wrong. After I built the core, I built the Dram Blade, and it seemed like it was working okay. Every now and then, though, the display would go blank. When you hit a test, the display would just go blank. The status LED would say if the chip was good or bad by being either red or green. So it seemed like it was still running the test. It's just the screen was going blank. But then sometimes you go to turn it on and it'll just say select, and then sometimes it seems to start up like it's supposed to. So it's kind of wishy-washy, and it seems to be gradually getting worse. So let me see if I can demonstrate. No chip in it. I have the Dram Blade, which is the Dram Blade 2, the newest updated one. Let me turn it on, and this is correct. Now it seems to be working. You're supposed to be able to select what chip you want with these two buttons right here. This goes through the menu. So let's see what happens when I push it. Sometimes these buttons don't seem to do anything. Okay, now it seems to be working. So let's do the 2114, and this is a tested, known, good chip right here. So we'll put this in, and we'll hit the test button, and it's working. Okay, hit it again, test it again. All right, seems like it's working fine. Okay, let me pop this chip out. Like I say, this is a known good chip. And let me get another known good chip. Okay, here's another known good chip. And let's hit the test. Okay. It's working fine now. Okay. Now, let me put in a known bad 2114 chip. This one is labeled bad, and I know it's bad. Okay. Still on 2114. All I'm going to do is hit the test button. It's working now. The LED is red, says it's bad, and it says bad. Okay, let me try it again. Okay. Let me get another known bad chip, a 2114. This one is bad. Well, that one's pretty obvious. The leg's gone on it. Let me get another one that's got all the legs on it. Okay. All right, let's try this one. Okay, it just went blank. But the LED says it's red, which means it's bad. Every time I hit the button, it seems like it's doing the test because the LED is still showing bad. Alright, let me take this bad chip out. And put this good chip back in. Now I hit the test button. Okay, it says it's good by the LED, but the screen is still blank. All right, let me cut it off. Turn it back on. It says system failure. I couldn't quite get what it all said. PE, system failure, PE, no, Q2PE, Q2PE pin 11 bad, system failure. Okay, so what does that mean? I don't know. Q2, there's the only Q2 is on the blade, the SRAM blade. So it's the problem on the SRAM blade? Well, I was beginning to think it was. But let me take this blade off. Take this chip out. Here is the 4116 DRAM blade. I just finished building this. There's nothing to this one. 5 ceramic capacitors, 1 power LED, 1 resistor, which I think is to cut the voltage down for the LED, 1 Zener diode, and 2 chips and 3 relays and 2 electrolytic capacitors. That's all that's on this one. Like I say, not much to it. Alright, plug the blade in. Let me turn it on. Select test, but it's nothing else on the screen. System info, but there's no info. Options, but there's no options. Select test, no test. These buttons here scan per test, but it doesn't seem to be complete. Alright, let me turn it off and turn it back on. Now I did get this working when I first put it in. It did work a little bit. I got it to do a couple tests, but now it's not doing anything. Okay. So I immediately thought that, well, maybe it's the power supply. It's got one of these little cheap Chinese wall warts. So I brought in a switching power supply. I'll plug that in. I'll disconnect the wall wart here. And I'll plug this in. I've already checked it with the voltmeter, so I'm getting like 12.1 volts. Alright, let me turn it on. No difference. So I'm pretty much eliminated the power supply as the problem. Turn it off. turn it back on. Yeah. Okay, well, I've only got these two blades built, so I wouldn't think there'd be a problem with each one of the blades. I would say the problem has got to be in the core unit. So what in the core unit can go bad? Well, it's only got this chip and the display. Everything else is just resistors and a couple capacitors and voltage regulators. Now, this variable resistor does operate the contrast on the LCD screen, and that works. When it does put writing up there, you can turn this and you can adjust the screen. So, but the problem is, I think this chip right here is like an I/O chip or a communication chip that communicates with the blade. So I'm thinking it could be a communication problem. Maybe this chip has gone bad. And this chip right here, I have to look at the schematic and see exactly what that is. I'm not sure what that is. I think it's some type of an op amp, but I don't know what that controls. It's up here around the voltage input. But I don't know where the traces go to. It might go down to the, I don't know. I'll have to look at the schematic. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the board and I'm going to take the instructions and I'm going to go over the instructions again, and I'm going to make double sure that I got all these resistors in the right place and the right values, and make sure all of the resistors and the capacitors and everything are correct. Then I'm going to go over all my solder joints and make sure all the solder joints look good, which I'm pretty sure they do, but you never know. And once I check everything out, if everything checks out, the only thing I can't check, well, these two chips right here are cheap, so I could order these two chips and replace them, and that would tell me, eliminate those. And then the only thing left on this would be this LCD display, which could be the display. Everything might be working. I mean, it seems like the test is running. But if I don't know if these buttons are controlled by this chip, or whether these buttons are integrated into the LCD display. I don't know anything about this design, so maybe if I look at the schematics I can figure that out, but okay, I'm rambling. So let me go ahead and check this board and see if I can find anything wrong with it. Alright, I'm still trying to hunt down what the problem might be with the Inquisitor. I believe now, since I got two blades built and I'm having problems, the same problems essentially with both blades. The main problem is the screen goes blank. Sometimes when you test a chip, the screen will just go totally blank. Sometimes the select test will come up, but it won't give you nothing to select, and the buttons don't seem to be working. But the symptoms are similar, but they're slightly different for both blades. So I'm thinking that it's highly likely both blades have a problem. I'm thinking the problem is in the core unit. So what I did was I took the core unit and I went back over the instructions, the assembly instructions. And the first thing I did, I went through step by step and checked all the components to make sure I put them in the correct place, to make sure the values were correct, especially the resistors, to make sure I got the resistors in the correct place and had the right value. And not only did I visually identify each one in a position on the board, I also took my ohm meter and I checked them again for resistance to make sure that they were reading the correct value, and all of them were reading the correct value. All of them were in the correct place. So there's nothing wrong with the resistors. I even checked the solder joints on all of them. Did continuity checks to make sure that it was getting continuity between traces to rule out any bad or solder joints, that cold solder joints or whatever. So I've eliminated pretty much everything that physically could be wrong. And according to the instructions, it's built correctly. So therefore, the only conclusion that I can come to is that it has to have a component that's failing, or a component that's out of spec. Now, I didn't check any of the capacitors, or I didn't check on the SRAM blade. You got these transistors. I'd have to pull them out of circuit to check the transistors. And it may come down to that. But what I'm thinking, because I don't think it is the blade, I'm thinking it's the core unit. Now I've already, as you've seen earlier, I've already eliminated the power supply as the problem, because it came with this little AC adapter, a little wall wart, which is a 12-volt switching power supply. So I did away with that, and I hooked up the switcher power supply right here. I just used the 12 volt off of it, and I hooked up an adapter here that plugs right into it. So I ran it off of that power supply, and I got the same results. So I've eliminated the power supply, I've eliminated all the components, and the build looks good, all the components in its proper place. So I think the only thing left is components on the blade here. Now, not the blade, but the core unit. And it's not much on the core unit to go bad. You got two ICs. You got this IC here, which is a MCP 23017, and that's some type of it's like an I/O or communication chip that bridges or allows the blade, the pick on the blade, to communicate and to run the program, and basically to communicate with the LCD screen here. A lot of the pins here from this chip hook up or run over to these pins that go into the LCD screen. So I'll be the first to admit I don't know much about LCD screens and how they operate, but I did do a little research and found out it's pretty straightforward. And if you have this chip right here, and you can hook this up to a like an Arduino or what do you call them? A little processor. You hook it up to a Raspberry Pi, and using this chip as like a go-between or an I/O that will work to display here. So I'm thinking that maybe this chip here might be bad. So I went ahead and I've ordered a few of these chips. They're cheap. They don't cost that much. I think 5 for $15 on eBay. So I got 5 of those coming. Also got 5 of these chips coming here, which I believe is some type of like an op amp. It's a LM258P. And I don't know what the purpose of this is, because if you go on the NeoLoch website, I downloaded the schematics that's on the website, and the schematic, well, I don't think I printed off the one for the core, because the only schematic they got for the core is not this version. It doesn't even show this chip on it right here. So I don't have a schematic for the core, and I can't find one online nowhere. I don't know if they're going to release the schematic or they just haven't done it yet, but it's not in any of the documentation that you can find online. So all you can find is the schematic for the earlier version. So I can't really look at the schematic and tell, you know, exactly how everything is hooked up. So anyway, I've done all the checking I can do, and everything looks good. So we're going to go through and do one more round of test and see if it's still doing the same thing that it's been doing. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Dram Blade in. Okay, it's been off for about 5 minutes now. So still got the Dram Blade in there, and I still got a 4027 in the ZIF socket. So let's turn it on and see what happens. Okay, it came up. Let's hit the test button. Went blank again. Okay, that time it worked. The chip is bad though. Okay. We just keep doing it till it fails. Okay, now it's working every time. I put a little pressure on the LCD display and hit the button, and it went blank. I wonder if it's a problem with the LCD display. That's a possibility. Could be a bad display. I got my thumb under it, and I got a little pressure bending up on it. Okay, seems to be working every time. Now I'm going to release the pressure. Now I'm going to push down on the display. Aha! I think I got a bad display. Let me put pressure up on it again, cut it off, turn it back on. Working every time. Now I'll let the up pressure off of it. Alright. I'm going to leave the display on. I'm not going to hit nothing. I'm just going to push down on it right here. No, that didn't do nothing. I'm going to push down on it and hit the test button again. It went blank. Okay, let me see if I can find something to wedge in here. That looks pretty good. All right. Got this little connector wedged in here, and it's putting pressure up on the back side of the display. Let's see what happens now. Working every time. Okay. Let's take that chip out. Let's take the Dram Blade out and put the SRAM back in. And let's see if we get any errors when we turn it on with this. Nope, no errors. Okay. Let me get a bad 2114 here. Okay, works every time. Ain't that something? Freaking display bad. I wonder if it's a... The solder joints look so good. I don't think it's a solder joint. It's got to be a bad solder joint on the display itself. On the back side of the display is where all the circuits are. It's just a bad bad display evidently. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reflow the solder on these pins, and I'll turn it over and I'll reflow the solder on the back and see if that makes any difference. Never know. This is a good 2114 I put in, and it's working every time now. By golly, I think we solved the problem. the chip wasn't bad after all. Well, anyway, I got 5 coming, so I'll have them just in case. Now, what I'm wondering is, are all these LCD displays compatible? I know I just bought this kit, and probably if I contact the company I got it from, maybe they can make some arrangements. Maybe I send this one back and they send me another one. I don't know. I don't know what kind of warranty they have for a kit, because obviously, you know, you can destroy a kit putting it together if you don't know what you're doing. And I'll admit I'm not the best at this kind of stuff, but I think I do okay. I don't think I did anything to destroy it. I mean, all I did was solder the pins, and I think it's just a bad display is all. But who knows? Resoldering the pins might do it, if the bad connection is in the header pins here. If the bad connection is on the back of the board, then reflowing the header pins is not going to do it. I'm going to have to pull the display off the board. And I don't really want to do that, but if I have to, I have to. I'm also wondering if the board, the display, has this metal frame around it, and it looks like the metal frame goes through the circuit board, and on the back side it looks like they where it comes through, they twist it to hold it in place, and that metal frame is hitting on the bottom of this purple board. I'm wondering if maybe that metal frame is hitting on a trace on the underside and is causing a trace to short out. That's a possibility. So maybe before I solder this in, I should have put some type of insulating tape, you know, on the PC board for this to rest on, so it wouldn't rub into the board or chafe the board. But yeah, it's working flawlessly now. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and reflow those headers. Let me take the blade out. Take this chip out. That was a good one, that's a bad one. Alright, I'm going to take this piece out that I had wedged in there. All right, So I'm just going to flow some more solder on these pins. Okay, those have been reflowed. Alright, let's put the Dram Blade back in. Hook power back up. Put in a chip. 2114. Turn it on. System failed. Failure. Okay. Still giving me that message. Q2 PE pin 11 bad. Let me take the chip out and turn it on. Nope, it ain't working right. Okay, I hold pressure up on it like I was doing before, and it seems to be working now. It doesn't give the error. When I push up on it, I can hear something cracking. See if you can hear it. So something in that display is still funky. Oh me. Alright. Let me stick this wedge back in it. Alright. And with that wedge in it, it works. There must be a cold solder joint or a bad solder joint on the back of that board. Something it doesn't like. Working every time. Okay. I'm convinced that there's something wrong with that display. So, what am I going to do about it? Well, it's got to be changed. And there's only one way I know to change it. Going to have to desolder it. Now let's see, how do I want to do this? Do I want to desolder it from the back side of the board, or do I just desolder these pins up here and just pull the display up off the pins? I think that would be the best thing to do, because I wouldn't have to put any more heat on the main board here. Instead of heating these up again, all I have to do is just take my desoldering iron and because these are standard size pins, I ought to be able to get those off without a whole lot of problems. So let me go ahead and fire up my desoldering, and I might have to change the tip on it. I'm going to take a look. It's been a while since I replaced the tip on that thing. So let me go do that, and we'll be right back. Okay, here goes nothing. I'm going to see if I can't desolder these pins. Yeah. These definitely ain't gonna be fun to get out. Okay, that's more like it. There we go. Alright, I'm gonna have to look at this thing real close. See if I can't figure out what the deal is. Get the magnifying visor out and take a quick look at it. Be right back. Okay, well, I've come to the conclusion that the LCD display is bad. So I was curious, so I went ahead and I bent these little tabs which was on the back side, which holds the, I thought hold the frame over top of the LCD glass, and when I pulled it apart, this is what I found. This is under the bottom. See all those contacts? Well, those contacts make contact with each side. It's a strip that goes all the way down both sides, and the only thing that makes contact is just these little tabs hold pressure onto the board. So when I was flexing the board with my thumb or putting a wedge under it, it was twisting the circuit board, and that was making a connection that obviously had been lost somewhere along one of these mini pads right here. So I was just curious to see how it worked, and I figured it would be soldered, you know, like they do surface mount chips, where they put down the liquid paste on the pads and then put it together and then heat it up. But no, there's no solder involved. It just, the little tabs go through these 6 slots, and then the tabs are bent over on the back, and I guess when you bend those tabs, it sort of wedges it down and just holds it against the board. So, oh well, let me go ahead and put it back together and see if I can't tighten down those tabs, and maybe that'll fix the problem. If not, I'm going to have to get a new display. So I don't know, since I've taken this one apart, I don't know if the company that I got the kit from would send me a replacement. If not, you know, you can get them for they're like $5. The killer is you got to pay shipping. Every place I've found these, the exact replacement. Now this one here is outdated. You can find them on Mauser's website, and it says that they've been discontinued, and they don't have any in stock. But they do have a part number that supersedes this part number, and you can get that, and it's like $4.98. But then you got, I want to say it was something like $12 shipping, or maybe $7.99 shipping. So for $4.99 and $7.99 shipping, I can, you know, get one and have it here in 3 days. So, but who knows? Let me put this back together. Maybe I won't need one. Maybe I can fix this. Okay. I'm sure somebody's going to ask the question, what possessed you to take this thing apart? Why didn't you just contact the company you got it from and tell them it was bad and see if they send you a new one? Well, I guess curiosity. I like to see how things work. And a lot of times you're not going to see how they work unless you pull them apart. So anyway, I very carefully laid this out the way I took it apart so I can flip it back over and put it right back together to make sure I get it right. Also, this has a backlight in it. Now, I don't know why they didn't, when they designed the kit, why didn't they have put a switch on there to where you could turn the backlight on and off. It's powered by AC wall adapter, so it's not a concern with power. So it looked like they would have utilized the backlit function, but anyway, they didn't. So that's something to maybe look into if I get it working. All right. It just doesn't seem like that would be enough to make this thing work. Alright, tell you what, I'm going to start with the center. Let's see, which way did they go? I'm not sure which way the tabs are now. Okay, that tab's that way, that way, and that way. Okay, got it. Okay, you got to kind of press down on them. And that's how it makes contact, I guess, from the pressure. If I put more pressure down on them, that may be what it needs. The more pressure pulling down on it will make it have better contact. Okay. Now the only thing to do is to solder it back on and see if it works. So let me fire up the old soldering iron here. As soon as it gets hot, I'll be back. Okay, first thing I did, I took some of this clear packing tape here and I cut a piece, and it's probably not necessary, but I'm going to put it down on the board here. To kind of be a barrier or protective from these metal tabs on here wearing and maybe shorting out a trace on the board here. It doesn't look like it was, but over time I guess it could, so just gonna put a little extra added protection there. Okay, now go ahead and put this back down. And it's rocking around a little bit. I wonder. Let me straighten this up a little bit. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and solder this. Okay, that looks all right. Okay. A little awkward soldering in this position, but I think I'm going to go with my bigger solder. That fine solder is just too fine for those. Takes too long to get it on there. I think I got a bridge across those. I'll fix it. I think the first time when I was building the kit, when I soldered these, it wasn't on the purple board. That's what's making it a little bit harder to solder right now. I don't believe I got a solder bridge. Let me look at it kind of close here. Yeah, there's no solder bridge. Looks good. Okay, well, did we do any good? Or did we just screw it up? Alright, let me put the Dram Blade in. Hook the power up. Wait a minute. Cut it off. Hook the power up. Okay, moment of truth. Did we fix it or did we mess it up? How about that? It looks like it's working. Alright, we got it on 2114. So let me get my 2114s out here. All right, here we go. Okay, let me put a little pressure on it. Still working. Put some pressure on here. Some pressure here. I believe we fixed it. I believe the problem was this frame that holds the glass down to the circuit board was, when they crimped it on, it was just too loose. It wasn't compressing the glass against the circuit board, and it was just barely making contact. And then sometimes it would make contact and sometimes it wouldn't. I believe that was the problem. Okay. Let me go ahead and get a bad 2114. And we'll try out a known bad one. Bingo. Okay. I believe we got it working. Let me just try a few more good ones here. Uh-oh. It says system failure again. But that could be something totally different. It still seems to be working. All right. Maybe I just don't like that chip. Well, it still says system failure. Huh. But it seems to be working. At least we fixed the display problem, I believe. Okay. Let's take this blade off and let's put the Dram blade back on. And let's turn that on and see if we come up. Okay. That's coming up with that okay. Here's our 4027s. These are good ones. Okay. Let me get a bad one. Test this bad 4027. And it says it's bad. Okay, let me check another bad one. They seem to be working fine. All right, let me try cutting it off, leaving the bad chip in, and just turning it on. See if it... All right, comes on like it should. Okay. We'll try another good one. All right, I see no problems there. So now the only problem we seem to have is with the SRAM blade. And that could be one of these, the Q2 transistor bad. I have a bunch of these transistors, so I can swap that out to see if that makes a difference. I think I have those transistors because I believe, might be wrong, I believe they're used in a Bally pinball board. I don't know if it's Baby Pac-Man or if it's just the Bally solenoid driver board or the light board. Maybe it's the light board. But it's one of them, and I got a whole pile of those. So, yeah. All right, let me go ahead and see what happens. Okay, that time it didn't come up with a system failure. All right, so let me try some 2114s. A good one here. And it says okay. All right, let me turn it off and turn it on with a chip in it. It seems like it gives that system failure whenever I have a chip in it, or maybe when it's got a bad chip in it. I don't know. Let's see. Nope, it gives me that system failure when I have a chip in it, and that's a good chip. If I take the chip out and turn it on, it doesn't say system failure. Okay, so I can, I guess, email either the gentleman who designed and built these, or I could go through the company, the pinball company that's selling them, currently selling them, and ask them about that, if what they think. Probably be better if I emailed the guy who actually designed this. He would probably have a better idea and might even know exactly what it is. It may be that when you turn this on with a chip in it, I'm sure it has a self-test, and maybe it's, with that chip in there, maybe it's testing that Q2 is being bad. And maybe if I just changed Q2, that would remedy the problem. But for now, the major problem is fixed. I don't have to worry about that display now. Seems to be working just fine. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained is what I say. Now that I took that display apart and seen how it's put together and how it works, I learned something. Learned something that I didn't know before I did it. And I was able to fix it in the process. So that's what it's all about. Sometimes you just have to go out on a limb and let me turn it off and turn it back on with that chip in. Just see. Yeah, it still says system failure. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. Okay. So I guess this is going to end this problem with the core board. Problem, I guess, is fixed. Still possible I might have a problem with the SRAM blade. But maybe I'll send off an email to the designer of the system, and before I publish this video, and I can just add on to this. So see if he has anything to say about it. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, well, you just saw the video, different outtakes of how the problem with my Inquisitor crept up on me and developed into a full-blown problem, and actually turned out to be two separate problems. The main problem was with this display right here, and as you just seen, what the problem was and what the fix was, and now that works 100%. I haven't had any more issues with it, so I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that. The other problem with the system failure message, well, that turns out not to be a problem, because well, anyway, what I finally did was I decided to email David Hoffman, who is the gentleman who designed and originally was selling the NeoLoch Inquisitors. But from my understanding, he sold, I guess, the rights to it. I don't know exactly the details, but anyway, Pinball Classics, which is lockwinlit.com. If you go there, that's who you go to if you want to buy an Inquisitor and the blades. I guess he has probably exclusive rights to produce the kit and sell the kit. And I would imagine if you have any problems, you could email him and he would probably be glad to help you out. I have not contacted him. I like to try to figure out things myself before I go worrying or bothering the people who put out these things, because if everybody has a problem and it's little problems that you can fix yourself, but you keep contacting them, you know, it's just not that many hours in the day for him or people like him to be answering questions all day long about problems that, you know, you could probably solve yourself. Now, if you have a problem that you can't solve yourself, yeah, I can understand, you know, go for the help. I mean, that's probably what it's there for, good customer help. And if they're willing to give you that help, that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is don't unnecessarily bother them with something that you can figure out yourself. Like the display problem. I could have emailed him and told him about the display and all this, and went back and forth, and he may have sent me a new display and that would have fixed the problem. But instead, I went ahead and I looked into it myself, and I was able to fix it without having to get new parts. So that's just one example. But the other problem with the system failure message, well, I figured I'd have to have a little bit of help with that. So I decided to email David Hoffman, who still has his website up, and that's where I downloaded the instructions for putting this together. So whether he officially still supplies technical help for the NeoLoch Inquisitor, I don't really know, but I do know if you email him, I emailed him, and he emailed me back immediately with the help that I needed and the answers that I needed. So I'm just going to read you the email that I sent him, and I titled it NeoLoch Inquisitor IC Tester Kit Problem. I said, hello, I just bought and built the Inquisitor core kit and 3 of the blades from Pinball Classics. So far I have built the core, SRAM 2, and the 4116 DRAM blade. I still have to build the PIA Riot blade. I made a YouTube video of the core build, which is almost 3 hours long, showing my complete build. I also plan to release a build video for each blade. The build went fine, but it wasn't long before I discovered a problem, which turns out to be two problems in one. The first problem was with the LCD display, which I have already fixed. Sometimes the bottom line would be missing, and sometimes the display would go blank. The display was bad, but I took it apart and fixed it. I show this in the video. I'll post a link below, but I have fixed the display problem. Now, the video I'm talking about is an unlisted video. I put together a little video with some of the footage that you just seen in this video here. I sort of edited it down so it's not as long as this video. I just put the key points in there so that Mr. Hoffman could see what I was talking about. And he's the only one that's seen that particular video. Okay, I'll go on with the email. I said, I still have a problem with the SRAM blade. It tests RAMs just fine, but if you power it up with a RAM in the ZIF socket, it will display the message, system failure, Q2 PE pin 11 bad. If you power it up without a RAM in the ZIF socket, then there's no system failure message. So I asked the question, so is this normal, or do I have a problem? It seems to work either way. Thanks for any help, and thanks for making such a great tester. P.S. It looks like the LCD display has a backlight. Is it possible to power up the backlight? Alright. Well, it turns out that this does not have a backlight in it. It does have the pins 15 and 16 are the power pins for a backlight, but this particular display doesn't have the backlight LEDs in it. So probably in editing this video, I may have edited that part out, or I may have left it in, and I may have put a little message on there telling that, yeah, it doesn't have a backlight in the display. Now, I think I've found a display that will replace this that does have a backlight. So it is possible to retrofit this with a display that has a backlight in it. But would anybody be interested in that? Is it really needed? Probably not. That's probably why he didn't put a display that had a backlight in it. Okay, enough for that. All right, now he emailed me right back, and this is his reply. Hello, Sam. Never seen that problem with the LCD screen before, but then I don't know what part lock when lit is using. It may not be the same part I was using. What is the manufacturer and part number for that LCD screen? As for the SRAM blade, it's working fine that I can see. When SRAM blade powers on, a power on self-test is conducted. Part of the post is to test the transistors to make sure they are working correctly. If one isn't, then an error message will be displayed indicating which transistor has failed. This failure can either be the transistor or the 23008. However, if a RAM is inserted into the ZIF, it can cause interference with the post and in turn cause the generation of a false error message. The larger the RAM's pin count, the more errors can be falsely generated. And then he goes on to say, I don't think that LCD has a backlight. It's not thick enough. But if it did, you could easily hack in power connections to the backlight pins. I think it's 15 and 16. But look at the data sheet to be sure. I don't recommend powering the backlight using the supplied power supply. Doubt it has enough current to run the tester and the backlight. Sincerely, David Hoffman. Okay, so then I wrote him back. Well, first let's see what he said. He said that it's not a problem with that error code. So in other words, if you put it doesn't matter if it's a good or a bad RAM in here, and I got it set up for 2114. Okay, let me put a 2114 in here. Okay, test okay. Now, if I cut it off and turn it on with a RAM in here, it doesn't matter if it's a good RAM or bad RAM, it'll give you the system failure message. But that's okay, because after it boots up, it'll still test the chips just fine. It's just that if you don't want to see that error message, just make sure that you don't have a chip in it when you fire it up, because when you power it up, it runs through that test, and because it's detecting pins in the ZIF socket, it gives that false message that one of these transistors here are bad. So that's the gist of it. So there's no problem with the SRAM blade or the core unit there. Okay, so anyway, I sent them back another email, and this is what I said. I said, thanks, David, for the fast reply. Good to know that's not a problem with the SRAM blade or the core. The display supplied with my kit has silk screen on the back of the board, MTC 16205D, but had a sticker with the number NMTC-S 16205DRGHS-07, which Mouser has listed for $4.28 each. So if it was bad, I was just going to order a new one. And I sent them a link to the data sheet on Mouser's website. Then I go on, I say, you're correct. According to the data sheet, it has no backlight. I assume if my display went bad, I could replace it with one with a backlight, as the pinout seems to be the same, but like you say, it would probably require a bigger power supply. I'll just leave well enough alone for now. Then I ask, are you still working on the Pokey Blade? That would be cool if doable. Thanks again, Sam. And he sent me back an email, said, yes, that's the same part that I was using for the LCD. And he also says, I haven't written off working on the Pokey, but I haven't invested any time into it at this point. It could still happen. Sincerely, David Hoffman. So there you go, directly from the man himself. He's not currently working on it, but it's still on his radar, and he says it's still a possibility. So that's something that we can all hope for in the future. It would be nice to have a Pokey Blade for the Inquisitor. So there you have it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We finally got everything working like it's supposed to, and now I got one more blade to build. So unless I decide to get one of the other blades that I haven't purchased yet, which right now I don't have a need for it, but to complete the set I might do it. I don't know yet. But anyway, that's going to end this repair video. I know I learned something from it. I hope maybe you learned something from it, and I hope you like this kind of content. If you do, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get my subscribership up a little higher. So if you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. Write me a comment. Let me know if you like it. If you have any questions, let me know what you don't like about it. And that's it for now. This has just been another arcade fix. Have you had your arcade fix today?